Okay, welcome. Hello. This is the All About Grammar live talk. Grammar is one of my favorite things in Montessori. And we're just going to get started with, and this is going to be about lower elementary Montessori grammar. So we'll get started with a small preview of what the schedule of today. So it's each call's around 15 to 30 minutes long, and we'll have a little bit of time in between the calls. But the Zoom link is the same every time, so you can join with the same link. Um, the first call, like this one, I'll be talking about the different what's already in Montessori with the grammar and everything. So that's symbolizing and the grammar boxes. And then at 1 p.m., I'll go through first grade grammar at 2, second grade grammar at 3, third grade grammar, and at 4. It's just like a closing call and then Q&A. Some people have already submitted some very nice questions. So um, I'll remind you to submit in a second. But in these are just an explanation of what I show which grades and when I show it, basically, um, and the reasoning behind which one it is. So, you can leave a question at the Google form. I can put it in the um, chat right here in case you want a quicker link, but it is on all the pages of the website um, for the talk. So that'll be great. Any questions? It doesn't necessarily have to be related to grammar. If you have a different question, that's fine as well. So I will just briefly introduce myself. I'm Bethany. I'm a lower elementary guide. I'm AMS certified in 6 to 9. Um, and I am the owner of Parts of Language LLC, which does Spanish work and Montessori work. And I was also a Montessori child. And I will say the grammar symbols were my favorite, like Montessori material. And it's taken me until now in my Montessori journey to finally get like a concrete plan. And I'll explain this a little bit more, but if you know like my work plan and my editing sheets, you know I like to do things in like 36-week chunks. And um I finally was thinking, I mean, I'll touch on this more, but I just needed a systemized way to do this grammar because the kids were getting bored with it and everything. So that's kind of what we are going to be talking about today. So, we are going to go through a journey of the grammar materials in Montessori. And then, of course, the first one are the grammar symbols. Personally, my favorite work, like I've already said, but I'll briefly go through them. I know we're probably all Montessorians here, but on the off chance it's maybe your first year teaching or anything, I'll just go through and say the symbols. So the small light blue triangle represents the article. The medium dark blue triangle represents the adjective, which, describes the noun. The noun is a black triangle, which represents the noun, which is a person, place, thing, or idea. The large red circle is a verb that is the action words. The purple triangle is the pronoun, which represents the replacement of a noun. And then the green bridge represents prepositions, connector of nouns. The orange circle represents the adverb, the small orange circle, and that describes the verb, obviously. And then the pink rectangle represents the conjunction, which connects noun phrases or clauses. And then the last one is the gold keyhole. Now, some people flip it around. I say that's incorrect, but others flip it around too. So either way, it represents the interjection, which are the like exclamation words. What we use these Gramble symbols for are symbolizing sentences. Now, I love to symbolize sentences. Um, and if you know me, I have had my symbolizing cards for years, but not that my kids are getting bored of them, but it's the same thing after thing. It's like, for grammar, I have to do another symbolizing card. I'm like, yes, let's symbolize. And then they'll sit with me and do it. But I think it's the excitement behind it. But I also realized there's a lot more topics we can be talking about except just symbolizing the cards. Um, and some people do it. I've done it both ways where I've done like symbolizing cards for every follow-up work for grammar. And then this past year and going forward, I've been trying to work on this for years to get a systemized way to do the grammar because it's just so much, um, and it's just a lot. But that's why I realized I had to go in a little different one. And so the next slide, it's probably going to be un-Montessori of me to say, but I do not like the grammar boxes. I've expressed this different times. The amount of times that in my 7 years in the classroom that I've had kids use a grammar box are maybe 5 times. And the only reason I don't is because the colors don't match the symbols. And also, it's created for Italian. So it's the adjective is behind the noun, and that whole system, it confuses the students so much. Maybe you all have a different experience with the grammar boxes, but even in my training, and I'll talk about this a little bit, um, they weren't like prevalent what we learned. We learned about the symbols, and I think the grammar boxes are more of a, I don't, I don't know. Obviously, they're used for that, but as we all know, there's not many language materials that are specific to Montessori because of the language barrier and everything. So let me see if I want to say anything else. Yes. Um, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I was originally taught about grammar. Um, so what I knew from my AMS training was that there was the farm and the basic presentations for each symbol, but it didn't extend the whole 36 weeks of school, even though I will say sometimes the whole 36 weeks aren't like academic weeks, right? There's different things, but I just like to do this. I like a systemized way to do it, and that's um wasn't what was taught. It was just like, here's the initial presentation. They'll go back to the things and practice it. And maybe I don't have this in my current classroom, but maybe you have like the Washika grammar drawers, and those have like 10 for each things. I don't have those, but that is something people go to, like, okay, here's the initial presentation, and then just do like these follow-up things, which is similar, um, or different to how maybe you do grammar, or maybe you just do symbolizing cards. But I will say briefly before I talk about um, my ideas and ways that I've done it more recently with the grammar. There's different ways to symbolize, and you might know about these, but the colored pencils with the stencils, I think we all have used. Um, there's the paper punches. My mom actually got me these for Christmas 1 year. They're all the paper punches for the different symbols, so like all the different ones, and there's even like a crescent moon for the preposition. And the kids like that. So if you're having an issue with kids still symbolizing, maybe try to get the punches and have them glue it. And then also a freehand pencil. Also, I have not tried this, but it seems super cool. It's the stamps and colored ink. I think they would like that since we stamp coins and clocks. I'm sure that would go great. I just don't have the stamps of the colors or know where to get them. But um, these are just different ways to symbolize. And then I'm just going to talk about what I don't want to call it a new way because it's all the information we already have. It's just actual follow-up activities than just symbolizing. Now, I do like to pair them with a symbolizing card, or maybe once a week I'll have them do a grammar and then a symbolizing card a different day. Although if you know me and you know how I like to do my different subject areas for all the subject areas. Like I like to do one grammar, one word study, one writing, that type of thing for language. And then for math, it's like one of each of these chunks of groups. But we're focusing on grammar today. So I just needed a way for students to know exactly what they were doing for a follow-up work. I just want to see what my next slide is really fast. Okay, yes. So I've created these grammar cards and pages, which they're either command cards, as you see here on this side, or they're like pages. So they're just like record, like pages to record their work on. And so if you didn't want to print out the pages, which they do have like colored symbols, or there's some in all black and white and they can color in the symbols. You could have them do the command card on the piece of paper. I've done it with my class with both ways. Um, it just depends on the student too. Maybe like the page looks like too much to them. So doing it in chunks with the grammar command card are a little bit better way to go. And these all follow my scope and sequence too. And so what I did was I said, okay, on the scope and sequence, And what I did previously with my scope and sequence I've had for years, I said, okay, like let's say it was like personal pronouns. I'm like, okay, let me sit here and write out each personal pronoun and then remember what that is. Remember, I mean, obviously those ones are easier than some of the other like language scientific names to remember, but I also had, well, I have a few of these printed out, but and laminated. But usually what I do is I just have blank ones of these, which are also in this set, and then I would just write with an expo marker, but that was taking a lot of time. So I finally just created a set. It's just really what I've been doing for years in a set now. Um, and so there's some things, as I'll talk about when we get to the specific grades, where I have I have different um like presentations for it, right? But sometimes maybe they don't need the presentation. They're like just ready for the next grammar work and because it's a review or more practice. And you'll see that as we go through these. I still give the presentations like we're I don't want to say supposed to, but like the normal presentations. It's just more of a streamlined system. And yeah. And so I say 36 weeks, that's for first, second, and third. It's just but perhaps all the students might not get to it. I'm very much in these last few years just like an individual presentation person. So when the student's ready, they come up to me, they say, okay, this is the next work. I say, okay, I'll give you the presentation. And so this is even more like I know exactly what I have ready. Now, do the students have to practice it this way? If it's, I just see like pronouns in front of me. So if it's the object pronoun, do they have to necessarily practice it this way? No, they could practice it in a different way they want it. It's just easier for me and the student to say, okay, this is your next work. Here's what you need to do. Um, so it's about one task a week, but maybe a student is lollygagging, I guess you could say, and doesn't get through all of them, and that's okay too. Or if you have super large classes, it could all be I mean, grade level group work. Okay, and I kind of talked about this already, but what to expect from the different talks? It's mostly going to be what I teach in each grade level. This was kind of just a jumble of like the grammar boxes and the symbolizing, but it will now talk about like all the different grammar topics. You see what I have for each grade level and what I do, and I will warn you ahead of time. Some of them I like to introduce like all the pronouns or all the verb conjugation type of things to the students because a lot of the students might not make it all the way through the Montessori years as we're all aware or they might they go to different schools or whatever, so I just like to make sure it's introduced in a way that makes sense for them to see it and everything. So I think that's all I had for this first talk.